2022, and I'm glad that you're joining us today from wherever you're joining us. I trust you slept easy, woken up well, ready to face the good day. And everyone always look forward to ushering in a Friday, because that is a segue to the weekend. I don't know what plans you have for the weekend. Most of you may be planning to travel, relax, be with family after a long week. And I'm glad also we're winding up the week as well. And we always wind up the week with Uongozi today, where we primarily focus on what is happening on matters leadership, looking at the current state of play, of course, in the country as well. Yesterday was a big day for the Cabinet Secretary, a maiden meeting with the President, where a raft of issues were raised, policy also directions were given. And so the government is shaking into place day by day. But still, on the other side of the spectrum, we have Azimio, which is now threatening to have an implosion. Do you believe members are feeling frustrated within Azimio right now, playing or actually saying that they're being shortchanged and played by members of the Azimio coalition party? What does it really portend for Azimio coalition party? And we also, I should say, will be looking at what is happening with the COP27, with the climate change, some of the issues that have been raised so far. That also will be something that will be on the table. But before we just begin by looking at what is fresh off the press this morning, allow me to introduce Wakili Ambrose Weda, who's up and early in studio today. Good to see you.
Good morning, fellow Kenyans, local and international, wherever you are, those who are waking up, those who are waking up, good morning, be blessed, and have a strong, blessed, prosperous day. Hoping the week has been good.
Good. In a moment, you shall be giving us the red eye of the day.
Yes.
Just to, of course, give us a pick-me-up in the morning to encourage Kenyans who are waking up and they're feeling, oh, you know, the world is on top of me. I need to be on top of the world. Yeah? So, take it away. I know we're in Mchungaji.
Yes, Debal. When you look at things, you actually look at the owner of things, the one who created them. And you always ask, what does he say? If I am down, if I am up, if I'm in the middle, what does he say?
Yeah.
And the King of Kings says that his word says, better the end of a thing than its beginning. What does that mean? It means that wherever you go through, whatever you face, whatever it is,
yes,
it can be difficult, it can be hard, it can be whatever. Your major concern will be, how will you end? And he wants you to end strong. He'd always tell his people, be strong and courageous.
Yes.
You know, when you're being told be strong and courageous, it means it is not easy. It means there will be moments when you'll be afraid. It means there will be moments when you will try to give up. It means there are moments when you'll despair. But he says, better the end of a thing
than the beginning.
And the beginning. And he continues to assure that the race is not to the swift, nor victory to the strong, but time and chance happens to all. So anytime you come out today, tomorrow, the other day, you just say, how will I end? And how I'm going to end determines how determined I'll remain. So you soldier in there, you hang in there, you continue. Whether people tell you, oh, the ball, hakuna, huwezi wewe, hakuna. You tell them, no, better the end of a thing. You get a D today, you say, better the end of a thing, because the race is not to the swift, nor victory to the strong, nor bread to whatever. So I would advise, as you wake up, whatever it is, whether you're going to look for a job, whether you're going to look for money, whether you're going to look for provisions, as you move on, there will be challenges. There will be. In fact, if you are not meeting any challenges, if you are not meeting any difficulties, then ask yourself, what is wrong? Because you have to. There must be Golgotha before the cross. And after the cross, and the grace did not come free. So those who are having difficulties, those who are facing mountains,
yes,
it is better the end. And put your eyes, focus on the end. And say, the end that I want, I'll do anything. I hear that those who go to the labor ward, there's always tears and cries and yelling. But you have seen people having 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. Despite the pain and the suffering and the crying, they say, better the end of a thing than the beginning. That is what I would want fellow Kenyans to continue. We have gone through Corona. Now you ask us, we are now meeting. So better the end of a thing.
Than the beginning.
Yeah, than the beginning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That is the radar of the day. Let me just wind it up with a beautiful also story here from Stories for the Heart in the Morning. He Listened is the title. And they're saying here, Joseph Bailey, written after he laid 3 of his sons in the grave. I was sitting, torn by grief. Someone came and talked to me of God's dealing, of why it happened, of hope beyond the grave. He talked constantly. He said things I knew were true. I was unmoved, except to wish he'd go away. He finally did. Another came and sat beside me. He just sat beside me for an hour and more. Listened when I said something, answered briefly, prayed simply, left. I was moved. I was comforted. I hated to see him go. There's a little poem there, which is I believe. I believe in the sun, even when it is not shining. I believe in love, even when I feel it not. I believe in God, even when he is silent. That was written on a wall in a concentration camp. Of course, we know of the final solution of Hitler with the extermination of the Jews. Hey, listen, sometimes you don't have to say much, just sit beside me. Be quiet and listen. That's all that I may need at that particular time. And that is your Radar of the Day. Thank you so much, Weda. Let's see what is fresh off the press this morning before we hear from Professor Gitila Naituli, who is here as well. And this is what is on the front page of the bold paper, The Standard. Cracks rock Uhuru and Raila party. That is what we have as a splash this morning. Looming fallout. The ghost of Nasser are stalking former President Uhuru Kenyatta and handshake partner Raila Odinga's Azimio coalition after Jubilee Party complained of unfair treatment by ODM over nominations to the Parliamentary Service Commission, accusing the Orange Party of political deceit and conmanship. This story is well tucked away for you on page 6 of The Standard. If we just have it in full, will be nice. Then we have on top there on the teaser, DPP Haji under fire over Bangle Gachagua case. This story is tucked away on page 4 of The Standard this morning. Tax pain in Ruto's first budget. Well, they've not been able to meet the target in the first quarter. You can follow the story on page 29 of The Standard. The man battling plastics. Wild. That is on the wild pages there on page 31 of The Standard this morning. It is South America's time. Read all about it also on page 44 of The Standard. You have the Pulse magazine that comes in handy for you every Friday. And it's all about picture perfect there. You can read all the details on that is tucked away inside the Standard this morning. Family shock of a body with missing organs. You can read all the details there on page 3. If you could have just the paper in full, that would be nice. You can follow the story there on page 3. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. MCAs now want their pay tripled. Right, MCAs now, they want their pay tripled. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. On top of your dispute, salaries team says ward reps knew the benefits before polls. That is what we can see there on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. That is a separate headline. An MCA will earn close to 400,000 shillings besides being awarded a development budget if proposals by the county assemblies forums are adopted. The clamor for a pay rise by the 2,100 MCAs coming on the back of similar demands by the 416 MPs will only worsen the country's wage bill crisis at a time limited public resources are also being gobbled up by repayment of a choking public debts. Is it called for right now? Is it worse? Especially with the contracting economy? Organ donation or theft family seeks answers on missing parts. Now it says here that when the body of Amani Justin Luwali arrived in Kenya from Italy, it came with instructions from her in-laws for her family not to open the coffin, but to proceed with the burial. But how do we bury someone without confirming it was indeed her? That was their burning question they asked. What they found shocked them, and all the gritty details are tucked away on page 12 of the Daily Nation this morning. Lawlessness and impunity creeping back. That is what Raila is saying. Opposition chief Raila Odinga has accused President Ruto's government of abating lawlessness and impunity, citing last week's incident where criminal gangs acting as auctioneers raided and demolished a family's home in Nairobi. The move by the DPP to drop cases against government officials, as well as widespread incidences of daylight crimes and profiling of the DCI. That is a story that you want to follow on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. Lupita's parents at Wakanda premiere. Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o and his wife Dorothy were the star attraction of the night, mingling and taking pictures with fans before the screening started. You can follow the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, court proposes Judiciary Office to assess evidence as Gachagua case withdrawn. That is another story that you want to follow there. And that's how the Daily Nation looks today. The Star up next. Big plot to ruin Raila Uhuru Raila strategy. Kenya Kwanza MPs plan to block Azimio favorites from regional parliament. And of course, we can see also here, this is a standalone picture, top brains story of Kenyans, only 4 women neurosurgeons. We can see, we just try and zoom in so that we can read the caption nicely there. Neurosurgeons Sylvia Shitsama, Susan Karanja, Tracy John, and Beverly Chesarim during the 4th Annual Continental Association of African Neurological Societies Congress at Villa Rosa Kempinski in Villa Rosa Kempinski Hotel on November the 9th. You can read all the gritty details on page 2 of the Star this morning. You have your Siasa Pullout magazine for 100 days closing in for Ruto on polling pledges. First 100 days closing in for Ruto on poll pledges. Now there is the Ruto's big dilemma. That is what is headlining the front page of the Star this morning. Also, Kanjo caught where poverty of city hustler is in cruel display, and starving mom of 3-week-old baby collapses and dies in Baringo. A breastfeeding woman collapsed and died on her way home from a water pan in Garatuko village, Baringo North Sub-County. Emily Chebon, who was 38, gave birth to her 5th child 3 weeks ago. The cause of death has not been ascertained, but residents suspect it could be hunger. She was trekking back home when she collapsed and died. And these are very telling stories that are coming, of course, to bear right now, just highlighting where the country is with hunger. We saw also some of them cooking chameleons and eating chameleons as well. You should give thanks if you have your breakfast on the table this morning. You have clothes on your back, food, also roof over your head as well. You should be grateful. Tighten your belts. This is what the People Daily is warning you. Tighten your belts. And this is season of austerity, but this is primarily focused on the civil servants. Civil servants barred from travel allowances reduced drastically as the Ruto administration moves to implement 300 billion shillings budget cuts in measures that also affect police. This story is tucked away on page 2 and 3 of the People Daily. Let's see how they're intending to do this. Food, drinks, all government agencies to stop buying food, drinks, snacks, and water from hotels and eateries. On communication, all state offices to reduce using paper, printing, and use email as main means of communication. On fuel, senior police officers asked to reduce trips using official cars to cut on fuel consumption. On training, all civil servants on scholarship sponsorship will now have to pay for their education and training. Also in travel, civil servants to earn less in travel and other perks as local and foreign trips suspended. And meetings for all agencies will be held in offices and boardrooms, not hotels and conference halls. That is how the reality is checking in for the civil servants on the austerity measures. And over 3.5 million candidates set to sit for national exams. Revelation of record number comes as cabinet set to decide on whether grade 6-7 will be in primary or secondary schools, and curtain falls on Kenya's second AG, James Karugu. That is on the obituary there on page 15. You can read all about it inside the People Daily. Wrangles Rock Azimio as Jubilee wants out. That is on page 4 of the People Daily. Taifa Leo, majambazi wateka miji vijiji. Magenge ya vijana walio tayari kuua waadhiriwa ya hangaisha wa Kenya. Polisi watoa tahadhari ya visa kupanda. You can follow this story on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Maskofu waongea, and you can see there mwenyekiti wa muungano wa maskofu wa kanisa ya Katoliki nchini ambaye pia ni askofu mkuu wa kanisa Katoliki jimbo la Mombasa, Martin Kivuva, akiandamana na askofu Philip Anyolo wa dayosisi ya Nairobi na askofu Anthony Muheria wa dayosisi ya Nyeri wakati wa mkutano na waandishi wa habari, ambapo maskofu 26 walihudhuria. Mkutano huo ulifanyika katika Holy Ghost Cathedral Mombasa. You can read all about it inside Taifa Leo. Business Daily. Ruto tax push suffers blow with 13.9 billion shillings shortfall in the first quarter. Taxman collected 459.5 billion shillings from workers and farms. Treasury CS Ndungu links drop to economic slowdown. Also, Nairobi beats London in luxury property gains. You can read all about it inside the Business Daily today. Ruto unveils Kenya made smartphone plan, and also Mi Vida to build low-cost apartment at Garden City. Safaricom Communications Authority first second-class action suit over SIM listing. You can read all about it on page 2 of the Business Daily. Across the region, we have Daily Monitor, 27 miss PLE. After director vanishes, pupil collapses during examination and dies. The director of the school did not come back after promising to return with a van to show for the pupils to Basana Primary School, where the exams were being conducted. This forced them to trek to the center, but they arrived too late. You can follow the story on page 3 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Some of the pupils who missed PLE also, their faces are splashed here on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Businessman Ham sues Kabaka over Kigo land is another story that you want to follow if you're waking up in Uganda right now. Oops, let me go back there. Let's see what is happening in Tanzania. SADC leader give 38 trillion shillings a power plan from Power Plant Fresh Impetus. That is Tanzanian shillings there. And TAA saying no complaints about safety at airports. You can read all about it inside the Citizen this morning. Mwananchi still in Tanzania, macho yote kwa Samia is a splash. In Rwanda, 700 million francs, that is Rwandan francs, earmarked for Rutusiro lighting project. You can read all about that. And I'll give you the rest of the dailies as we go on the international ones as well. But let me just hear from Professor Gitile Naitulu. Good morning, good to see you. And Churchill Suba, eagerly waiting to be joined by Kipruto Arab Kiro as well. He just called me last night that he was feeling a bit rough. So if he makes it, also will be a good miracle for us as well. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, and morning to your viewers.
Yes, it's been a long week.
Yes.
What has been the highlight of your week?
A very long highlight. I think the biggest highlight is these cases being removed, if you ask me.
Cases, sir?
These cases being terminated by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution.
Yes.
That should amount to the biggest highlight. Now, the reason is very simple. If they say they were coerced by the powers then to lie,
yes,
how do we know they are not being coerced by the powers now to say the same lies? So there is a problem here. And for me, the problem is to prosecute all those people who lied then and to find out whether they are not lying now. For me, I think that's a big highlight. Of course, the other highlight also is the SGR report. That has been a good one because, I mean, the country leadership can actually sit down and sell their motherland to a foreign power. I think that should shock us. The fact that is somebody you have given a responsibility over you to protect your assets and protect your life, they can sit down and sign on a deal like that. That means they can sell their own mothers for money.
For money.
And that means those people are worth nothing. I think as a country, those people should face prosecution because that was a criminal negligence. But also I think the country has no business honoring that loan. Because if the loan is being acquired illegally, the Chinese should carry their skunk. So I think this government needs to be very brave, if it wasn't involved, of course, in this mess. Because I think in 1994, is it 2000, when was that, 2004? 2004 when they were signing, 2014. 2014. If they were not involved, they should not pay this loan because there is very good reason not to honor it. If it was acquired illegally, then it doesn't have to be honored. If it violated, and there is precedence. There is this guy who sued the Uhuru government of airport. He not on any of those airport businesses in the airport. Then duty free. Then duty free he sued in America. And then he, out of the slip of the tongue, he claimed to have bribed the Moi government to acquire them. As a result of that, the American court dismissed the case with the cause. He said if you acquired it illegally, you cannot get relief from law because it was illegal. So there is already a precedent. If something was illegally done, it doesn't have to be honored. So what it requires this government to do is to move either to the International Court of Justice or to move to the arbitration in the US, regardless of what that contract says. Because the contract says everything in China, even if the language to be used in Chinese, the service must be done in China. I think you can ignore that. And just either go to the International Court and get this contract scrapped. There is nothing the Ruto government will be able to accomplish as long as they are tied down by an illegal contract that is consuming half of our resources. So they need to be very brave. But also I think they really need to prosecute the fellows who signed into that contract. Because now it's emerging that the port was actually put as a alien. You know, that is what that means. Is it Article 255, my friend? If you are going to do anything that compromises the boundaries of the Republic of Kenya, you need a referendum. So to put any part of Kenya as alien to a foreign power, you are actually interfering with the boundaries of the Republic of Kenya. And if you are doing that, then we need to participate in that. We need to agree with you. Because to adjust the Kenyan boundaries, you need a referendum. So that contract stinks to our events. It's a very bad one. Yes.
No way it smells fishy. This is also what Stano has actually captured in today's People Daily, the SGR deal. Let's hear from Churchill Suba. We missed you last week, sir. Where were you?
Oh, yes, I was in...
a man from Nyakacha.
I was in Diani, in Kwale County.
You in Diani?
Yes, working with local communities to build their capacity to hold their county governments to account. For me, I think there were several highlights. Of course, we have had the COP27 happening in Egypt, but because of the gravity of the climate change and its impact on our lives and livelihoods, it sounded like, a local event. Then, of course, we have had, the removal of term limits, the proposal. I personally think that there was more to it. Of course, it was dismissed because it would be one of the most unpopular moves if ever whoever proposed it were to pursue it. But you remember at some point before the elections, when then Deputy President and now President, His Excellency William Ruto, was stopped from traveling to Uganda. There was a very interesting and airy explanation of what they were up to. When a Kapseret member of parliament said that, they were going to consult with Museveni on how he has been able to stay in power for those many years without an effective opposition. And so for me, when I saw the proposal by Fafi member of parliament, who apparently was elected by such a small number of voters that even some MCS, got more votes than he was. But of course, he's a member of parliament in his own right. Made the proposal. It did not, for me, come as a surprise. These are things that are being discussed in low tones elsewhere. And one of the tragedies of this regime is the notion that that they are the messiahs that Kenyans were waiting for. And so they continue to wallow in that miasma and believing somehow that they were the messiahs Kenyans were waiting for, the best thing that has ever happened to Kenyans. And instead of, delivering on their pledges and services to the people, they continue to brag about waking up early. Yet we don't seem to see any benefit to that waking up early. The late President Mwai Kibaki was one of the most laid-back presidents we have had. But that did not stop the economy from growing. So I think that it is time the current administration put aside their excitement about their victory and delivered on the pressing needs that are affecting the people, so that we really can begin to grow. You have seen the wave of crime, and when you see crime of the kind that is happening, people being robbed by petty criminals on motorbikes and so on, and people losing their lives in the process, it's an indication that the people have lost hope. They were made to believe that upon electing, voting for the right candidates, that, all manna will fall from heaven. Now they have looked up to the skies and manna has refused to fall. And so they have taken to crime because the prices of basic commodities, unga and so on and so forth, have remained high beyond their reach. And when you see that such kind of crime, and of course normally the tendency is for crime to increase towards festivities, because those who are jobless also want to enjoy Christmas. They do not want to wait and see people, pushing trolleys in supermarkets. Yet they have nothing to put on the table for their young ones. And so we really need to wake up and recognize that, addressing the most pressing needs of people is, to me, much, much more of a priority than, for example, locally developing iPhones that we are told will cost, 5,000 shillings. You don't eat phones when hunger strikes. You eat unga, and so that for me is very, very critical. So those for me were the highlights of the week.
Thank you. Right, we just want to embark on what we have also on the dailies here. Maybe we can begin with what is happening so far with the parliamentarians. That is the standard, the Uhuru and Raila party, Azimio. We've seen them really crying foul, especially on the listing or some of appointments on the Public Service Commission. and the Jubilee members threatening that, yes, they want to bolt out of Azimio coalition. Let's just begin with the marriage of convenience, because all this happens just, the brinks of maybe a major election, a general election, is when now you need to have a coalition, but now the lasting impact of that coalition cannot be withheld to the next general election.
Thank you, Tibal. Sometimes you just look at history. The Azimio coalition was, people were coerced, people were pushed and kicked. And if you are not in it, DPP and DCI will raid your house and prefer charges. That's why governors, nearly all governors apart from Honorable Anwar Guru and I don't know who else, the rest had to stay put. Because otherwise the DCI would come with some documentation. So look at the history of KANU as a party, look at the history of NAC as a party. Anytime you lose elections, there will be cracks. People will go back to resettle where they were. I think some of these Azimio members, like from Jubilee, mostly from the Gikuyu nation, they want to resettle where their brothers and sisters are settled. So they'll look for any excuse to walk away, to break through, because it was a coalition that was put more by force than by a desire to win, than by what by a vision for this country. So the chickens automatically have to come home to roost. And I said before, and I would say that I know that President Uhuru Kenyatta, fourth president, is out of Azimio. Those who are still saying, my presidential party, whatever, he is out of it.
He's still the chair. We've not got any formal communication that he's not.
Yeah, well, you see, you have seen, as a lawyer, I can tell you this, Debal. I've been to court several times as a family lawyer. People come with marriage certificates, hanging. But in those certificates, there's no marriage in them. And say,
just a paper.
Yeah. So there's no marriage, but they have the certificate. Married, so-and-so, married. So-and-so, divorced. So here, there is Azimio with the President Uhuru Kenyatta, fourth president, as chair. What I know, President Uhuru Kenyatta Wangina is out. He is now President Uhuru's envoy, peace envoy. Hii ingine ya sijui slot here, Azimio there, Azimio here, Raila there. I can tell them from the pattern of study I know about boss. He is out. He will not chair these meetings. He will not be there. And the sooner they redesign their strategy, the better. For instance, Gazi Honorable Raila is talking. He has taken his position as opposition chief, and is doing it. You don't expect the son of Ngeda to go there. He will not go there. He is a businessman. He knows where power is. He knows what that Njora means. So he will not confront Honorable William Samuel Ruto. And that means he will quietly, he will neither say I've left or I'm in, but the people should read in between the lines. I told them before the elections, many times, I told them, President Uhuru Kenyatta will not come out to campaign for Raila. They dismiss and say, you are a Ruto man. Hey, he didn't. Now I'm telling them, he will not sit to chair Azimio and strategize and do documents and do, he will not. He is now a peace envoy, looking for people who are fighting, DRC Congo, Ethiopia, wherever. Now he has Air Force One, ndege kubwa, the one of the president. That's the one he's flying around. He does want to hear Azimio unaweza kupata tear gas. It can be tear gas. So Azimio people, please do your divorce quietly. Leave the son of Ngina in peace to enjoy his retirement and his status as new peace envoy. He's done well. We congratulate him. He did the Ethiopian one. There's evidence that the Congo one is doing well. and we need Somali one and so on and so hii ndogo ndogo ya Simio hapa ndani wachia watu kama people the son of Nyakach is complaining about the president waking up early because he has problem waking up early. Even today he came late. So when President William Samoei Arap Ruto wakes up early and requires people to wake up early, he thinks that's nothing. It is very important. Timekeeping is very important. And
it depends if you're a morning person.
There's nothing like a morning person.
It depends if you're a morning person or an evening person. What do you mean?
Let me tell you.
Some people they are in the element in the morning.
I've been an activist for 30 years. If I was as lazy as he was,
I didn't say you are lazy. I didn't say that.
I would not.
I didn't say you are lazy.
I would not be going. But back on the subject, because there is a subject that you put before us. It's not in my genes to dance over the graves of others, as Weda seems to enjoy. Whatever is happening in Azimio is how politics is done. That is how politics is done over the years. We saw recently Ledama Olekina complaining and threatening and Babu Owino. And it was all about jostling for positions in committees. They got it and that is done. So what is this tragedy that we are seeing that has never happened in political parties? In any case, I've never been a politician as such, but the way I see politicians behave like dogs. They will be friends when there is no bone to fight over. But whenever a bone is thrown their way, they cease to be friends. And they fight. Then after the bone is done with, they go back to playing and we see them jumping all over the place. So that is how politics is done. I think that, even within Kenya Kwanza, we have seen members of parliament saying, certain regions, Kisii was given a road deal. We have never convened a session like this to dance over the grave of Kenya Kwanza, as Weda seems to enjoy. This is politics, and politics about positioning yourself to make the most out of situations. So I personally do not think that, the threats to bolt out of Azimio, will come to pass. They are basically saying, we want a seat in the Parliamentary Service Commission, and we can see where it is, and it is ours. One belongs to ODM, one belongs to Wiper, and one belongs to Jubilee. Basically that. And once they get it, they'll keep on moving. As to whether, I do not know at what point when this became Uhuru's issue, but Uhuru, of course, remains the leader of Jubilee. He himself has never said that they are bolting out of Azimio. So as people who believe in political parties as the cornerstones of democratic processes, I would want to wish Azimio well. I'm happy at least some of the parties in Azimio are parties that have been there for a while, not like the others that were formed at the nick of time, just before the elections. So let's make comments that help our parties to grow, rather than dance over the graves of small grievances within political parties that would be resolved in due course.
All right, Professor.
Okay. So let me come to the slight defense of Chachero here. This young man was my student.
Oh, he was your student?
As in Egerton. So I know that.
Class and lectures and handing in of assignments.
Was he showing up late?
So I can vouch that he is not lazy. And he's very brilliant young man. But let me say this about the Azimio. Azimio will have to collapse.
Azimio will have to collapse?
It will have to, because there's no legs to stand on. You see, for an organization to thrive and live, it must have an ideology. Azimio, if you look even during the election, it has no agenda. The agenda was William Ruto. And that is why people ignored them. You understand? Because if your agenda is your opponent, you are very unlikely to make anyway in this vote hunting business. So if you look at them, if you ask you right now what was the Azimio agenda for Kenya, you tell me it was what? You understand? They didn't have a focus. They were not focused. They were totally unfocused. So what is happening now is that is showing up. Now, I don't know why Jubilee is complaining, because Jubilee didn't get any vote for Azimio. So Azimio shouldn't get all, ODM. ODM shouldn't get all the vote, because it is ODM which got the vote. not the Jubilee. Jubilee Center was Central Kenya. Okay? They produced no vote. So why are they complaining?
So they brought nothing on the
table. They brought almost near nothing. So they
no,
not
900,000 votes.
900 was very small. So proportionately, the ODM is the one which brought the votes. But having said that, let me say that I have never believed that at any time that Uhuru Kenyatta was serious about Azimio. I think Uhuru Kenyatta, his agenda was to put Raila in the pocket so that William Ruto can be president. And he delivered. So anybody who thinks from very beginning the was about making Raila president, they don't understand the politics. Because I just remember way too well, in 2002, Moi's candidate was Mwai Kibaki. So he gave us Uhuru Kenyatta as anti-coy. And we put the person he wanted to the office. I remember very well in 2005, that Kilifi draft, the constitution of 2005, which took her to referendum, it was called the Kilifi Work or whatever it was called. Mwai Kibaki hated that document. He knew that if it passes, he would not get a second term. So what did he do? He was the first one to say yes, so that Raila says no, and then go to campaign for him to defeat the document. And that's what happened. So for me, Jubilee was a failed administration. If there had been a poor government, since independent, it was Jubilee administration. So if you are Uhuru Kenyatta, and you like your friend Dr. William Ruto to be president, what do? You do exactly that. You tell him, enda huko nje, wacha tupigane na wewe huko, wacha tulete mjamaa hapa, tugalie yeye pole pole until I deliver you. This Uhuru has never been an Azimio. What did he do in Azimio? Did you ever see him campaign even one single day? And even if he did, people simply hated him because he failed the country. Okay, you can see even these things we are discussing here, this contract.
Wait, but that line of thinking has been challenged before, because we've seen Uhuru has not even been very welcoming.
No, he's just clever. He's just playing politics, like my friend here was saying. Uhuru is just playing politics. If Uhuru genuinely wanted Raila to win this election, he should never have endorsed him. Okay, because he knew he has all the intelligence in the country. He knew how unpopular he had become. He knew Central Kenya never wanted to hear anything about him. But he insisted, because I even remember when Martha Karua was appointed as Raila's running mate, and the people started gravitating to answer, what did Uhuru do? He went public and they said he is the one who appointed her. And that made the few who had decided to come to Azimio run away because they were not interested in anything Uhuru Kenyatta. So I don't think there will be a Azimio coalition by the time we reach the general election.
This is now the splinter of
Azimio. Yes, so I'm supporting my brother here, Bonawenda.
All right. Is there anything that we need to add on this, or we just wait to see how it will be developing?
This thing that my president, Uhuru Kenyatta wanted Ruto to be president, the hurdles he placed on the
but that's the trick.
The man from Sugoi.
That was a trick.
There was no trick. It is only that the man from Sugoi also had Jehovah leading him. There are areas, I think it is God who led the president. It was too much. The heat. You could hear Rigathi Gachagua saying, for old time's sake, my brother, have some mercy. Have mercy. The heat was much. I hear one time that he was undressed. You know, where the Linglo Longlo is open before your children. The police have done that to him. He cried tears. That could not have been that you are being made president. It is only that this thing slipped.
That's how deep state
And
works.
this other story, Kibaki wanted, all this. These are now theories which we leave it for the past and say Azimio itself has a problem, not just unique to Azimio. It happened to Kanu. When you don't get power, you don't know how to go about it, and then the way it was crafted. And what my brother from Nyakach, the one who was taught by professor here at Egerton. You know, Egerton is good, but it is outside there, so you can go to class anytime you want. But those who went to the university, just next to you here, time. So listen, Professor Juang would want you to be in time. Professor Kibwana would want you to be on time. So, and like that. So, you may say things that are meant to assuage the Azimio. It is good to assuage, to wipe your tears. But the fact is, they are out, and will be out the way of
I was saying those things in 2021.
So what is the future, not really primarily of Azimio,
in 2021,
even Jubilee Party itself?
I was saying the same theory in 2021. If you know, Jubilee cannot survive. I think the Central Kenya, because I think Jubilee is mainly in Central Kenya. Even the MPs got about 3 or 4. I think they got one in Nakuru, another one, and then 2 in Meru, so it's 3. Okay? These fellows,
Nyandarua also. There's one in
they got one, then there are 4.
Yeah.
If Jubilee will have to change. It's just like trying to say Kanu is Central even today. People still remember Kanu as a bad party. Jubilee is entered the same mindset of the people of Central Kenya. The Central Kenya fellows will have to create a new leadership, not the Jubilee one. If they are going to be competitive, because they will have to, I can see them, because I'm seeing the way the economy is moving, unless Dr. Ruto gets serious, and it goes after the corruption that took place, especially in the second term, he will have problems fixing this economy. This economy can't be fixed with the burden of stolen money, accumulating interest when the Chinese currency appreciates. You have trouble because the money is tied in the one we have borrowed. So unless he can go after these people, and I don't know he will do it, he will have problem fixing the economy. Now that when that happens, the first people to brought out will be people of Central Kenya, to brought out of the UNDA. The next group will be the Luyas, the Mbugusu, because I've never understood how Mbugusu every election they are able to vote with the Central Kenya. They vote in the same direction all elections. It's like in physics, they have this thing they call quantum entanglement. That is, if you have an helium atom, because there's 2, you split into 2. One is in Japan, one is in Kenya. When the one in Japan spins right, the one in Kenya spins left automatically. So the way these fellows communicate, I have no idea. But I think they couldn't be having the same socioeconomic setup, because they seem to move together in every election. So watch those 2 communities. If the economy does not perform, you will have to watch those 2 communities. But what I foresee is that the president is very particular, is a detailed person. There is a good chance that he will actually fix this economy. And that is why sometimes, I know there is this emotions about presidential term. I don't think that should have come now. It should have come after we have seen the performance. Because my argument has always been that if you get a president like the Paul Kagame, not Museveni, you get a president like Paul Kagame, you get a dictator who doesn't even have pockets, who is not dictating for himself, but is dictating because he wants a good country and a good society. I can have that dictator. You see, Chairman Mao is responsible for China becoming a superpower today. He declared the great leap forward. And that's what he said. He said, I know, because what we are going to do is drastic. There will be a lot of people who will oppose. But we are going to jail them, and we are also going to give them for their own good. Now, Chairman Mao never had the pockets. He was not a thief. So whatever he was doing for his people, his vision. Maybe he didn't sell it nicely because he actually grew a lot of people. So what you need, if you can get that kind of clean, pure leadership, then you can give them more time. Because if Kibaki was younger, and you told me to remove the term limit for Kibaki, I would have removed it. So, of course, what is happening here is that you can't dismiss it. You can't dismiss this suggestion. This is a test balloon. This is how it starts. And that is why one of the overriding things about the Constitution is to defend it, because before it is too weak to defend you. You simply make sure you just defend it before it is dismantled in a way that it can now not defend you. So I'm shocked that some people are floating that they should never do. They should do that after 2 years or 3, so that we can see the performance. Then based on the performance, we can say, wait a minute, can we give you more time? You understand? So I'm not emotionally opposing it personally. That's what I'm saying. But I wouldn't want undermining the Constitution so that you create somebody, you create a dictator basically, who has no interest of Kenya at heart. That's what I'm saying.
Let's hear from Churchill.
It does not matter how much interest they have at heart for Kenya. The Constitution, if that were to be the case, Obama is still loved a lot in the US.
I agree.
In fact, part of the reason the Democrats performed fairly well in the midterms is because the Obamas of this world, the Clintons, came out, to vote, to campaign for the Democrats. But that said, and when his term ended, and theirs is even 4, not 5 as we have here, they served for 4 years, he had to leave. I think President William Samoei Ruto must be prepared, if he survives the 2027 elections, to call it a day, because that is what his duty demands. We must respect our tradition, a tradition that we have set. Moi attempted to explain to Bush then that he was fearing that Kenya would splinter into ethnic fiefdoms. And he said, if you have been in power for that long and you have not been able to sort it out, what makes you think that staying a little longer will make you cobble the country together? So all these ideas about benevolent dictatorship and so on and so forth, as I've said, Kenya has no shortage of leadership. And that's why I started by saying, anybody out there thinking that, they are the Messiah that Kenyans were waiting for, would rather concentrate on delivering on their mandates and calling it a day when the time comes.
But one thing, my brother, is Kenya is really short of leaders. It doesn't have leaders. What we have is politicians, and there is a complete difference between a politician and a leader. A politician is about the promises and the next election. A leader is about long-term programs like Kibaki's Vision 2030 and the next generation. A leader wants his program to outlive that leader.
Thank you.
So we don't have leaders.
Yes, so I was saying that, if Kenya has a shortage of leaders, then none of us is, because those leaders, those people in office are a reflection of who we are.
Exactly.
They were begging for leadership the other day. Today they have just retinted their vehicles, so we don't see them when they are passing on the roadside. They have also sealed the rooftops. But they were here with us, and so it is upon us as Kenyans, by the way, to ensure that, because we have no shortage of leaders, but we tend to go for the wrong characters and start lamenting on day one, or getting into crime as people seem now to be doing, because now they are getting disillusioned about, the hopes that they had seemingly are not being fulfilled and so on. But we have among us people with the capacity to provide the leadership that we are looking for. So personally, I think that, yes, there could be occasionally good leaders like we had Kibaki. But remember, Kibaki's reign also was not, taintless. We cannot say that,
True.
Yeah, I mean, it had its own shortcomings. We had the worst political upheaval in this country, almost, degenerating into a civil strife. that were it not for the international community, Kenya would not be what we seem to know it today to be. So let people serve. Let all this, and I was not surprised that it came from Fafi. I remember the Kanu days. There was also another MP for Fafi who was given to this. He used to wear some Islamic turban. And they were given to these loose tongues. So there's something about Fafi that also historians need to investigate. They get elected with about 3,000 votes.
Thank you.
And cause all manner of havoc in the country.
Okay.
So
I want us to wind up. We go back to also what is
allow
with MCAs and
allow
the pay
me
hike.
to rein in on what Professor said. I feel very sad. I feel very sad that anybody can say that we need benevolent dictators. That we want to benchmark, and we benchmark with Rwanda. That is voodoo thinking, especially coming from those who teach in our highest universities. When you benchmark with the very best. The very best. And the very best for now in terms of development, innovation, generosity, philanthropy, reasonableness is countries like America, countries like France, countries like Switzerland, countries like Britain. Anytime you kill the human will through dictatorship and force, you close the door of innovation and discovery. That is how it works. That's why, look, East, there's no discovery, nothing. They copy, including China. They copy. Look, West, where there's freedom, people research, they do things, and they come up with it.
Singapore.
Please allow me. Singapore, there's no discovery. Please, Professor, allow me to finish this. We talk about Singapore. There's no discovery which has ever come out of Singapore. It is only that they are running well. And in Singapore, there's full freedom. Freedom. Please let me finish, Professor. This is not the university tea room where everybody talks without order. So anytime we are talking about growth, we are talking about discovery, we are talking about good things, we look at the best practices. Rwanda has done well in terms of structures, good roads, whatever. It works well like a high school well run. Where the principle is the principle. So it's left, people say left. Now, innovation cannot come out of those. Here in Kenya, we have high degree of freedom. If the president comes up with BBI, we tell him, utaona. If the elections, people think it is not right, there's no problem, there's some problem with it, the Supreme Court will say we nullify. Now, that is why we are robust. That's why even when we fought in 2007, we could quickly sit down and talk. So when somebody talks about benevolent dictatorship and then he cites China and Rwanda, he doesn't want to cite Switzerland, he doesn't want to cite America, and he's a professor in the university, then we need to pray fast. Number two, the time limits. I really don't think that may have come, that did not come from the president. That came from people who want attention. Ordinarily, if the term limit issue was to come up, it was to come up in the second term, mid. But even that, we don't have to worry about it. Why? Because there is a constituency you have to convince. That constituency is in heaven. It's not here. The president, William Samoei Ruto, said, there's a God in heaven. There was BBI, supported by everybody. But eventually, even the president said there's a God in heaven, and BBI just went. Term limit was not put as a wedding ceremony in this country. People shed blood to put it. People went to Nyati. People like me went to Nyati House. Even the man from Nyakaji, although he comes late, but he shed blood and sweated for the term limit. Removing the term limit, they will see.
He was late in jail.
Kabisa, they will see, whoever wants to remove the, you will see men and women doing linglo naked in this streets before it is done. So let's not say if somebody is so good. Tenda wema, nenda zako. Jesus Christ, 33 years, he finished the job and left. If he insisted on remaining here, I'm Jesus, Son of God, we would not have been saved. So let the job be done. I know the 5th president is going to do a good job. Let him do a good job. When the time comes, finishes, and he goes out to preach the good news of the kingdom. People like Professor here urging, hey, if you do well, just continue. They tried to tell Kibaki like that. Kibaki told them, nah, hakuna. He was the one addressing them. Because they were saying, now, the way the economy is doing very well, we think we remove the term. He refused. I know President Williams will also refuse those people.
All right, time to take a short break right now. When we come back, we'll also look at what is on the front page of the Daily Nation, with the MCAs right now trying to push their envelope. MCAs now want their pay tripled. This is what is on the Daily Nation today. An MCA will earn close to 400,000 shillings besides being awarded a development budget if proposals by the County Assembly Forum are adopted.